What's up everyone, I'm Harrison and welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. What is Tutorial Tuesday? For those that don't know, Tutorial Tuesday is every single Tuesday I teach you how to draw some of your favorite characters. Today we are sticking on the Akira Toriyama train and drawing one of his first creations, Arale from Dr. Slump. So grab your hat, glasses, and your floating gotcha, and let's into this one. So today's drawing is different than most that we have done in the past. We are primarily focusing on the head. So in that center of your page, draw a nice round oval. Once you get that down, draw two big circles on that lower third of that oval, and then draw like a bridge across the center of them. These are going to be her glasses. In that middle third of the oval, draw a flattened out circle. This is going to be the brim of her hat. You can start indicating the shape of that by making it a little bit of a bean shape, and then on the top third we can exceed the circle and draw the top of the cap. In today's drawing, Arale is doing one of her cheeky character moves, and she is sticking her fingers in her tongue, spreading her mouth open and sticking her tongue out. So we are going to do that. On either edge of the page, draw two tube shapes, and this will be our forearm to elbow. And then right at the top of that line where the elbow would be, draw a slant that connects to that circle of her head. On the edge of the circle of her face, draw two small circles at the very bottom. That will be her fingertips. So I made Arale's head way too big. I erased it, and what I'm doing now is making sure that all the details of her hands and tongue and face are able to fit within the constraints of the page. For her hand, draw a little ball that connects to that fingertip on both sides, and in the center of those hands, draw her tongue. This will give us the correct placement for all of the features. We don't have to do too much correction. If you've been following along with me to this point and you also have to erase, don't scrape your paper so hard that you erase everything completely. You can leave some lines because we are barely going to adjust the work that we're doing. We just need to shift some things around. You can use a lot of those lines as guides. So typically I would wait to add all the detail until we've gotten everything mapped out, but I added it now. We added a thumb bit to the top of the finger, so we're gonna add this like S-shaped curve, and then we're gonna indicate some finger lines and then just lock in those lines for the elbow. And we're doing that on both sides now. From where her fingertips are, draw a rectangular tube all the way across, and it can start at the tip of that line of the finger and go all the way to the tip of the line of the other finger. You won't draw that bottom tube all the way across because the tongue will be overlapped. And then you'll draw two lines on the top and bottom to indicate the lip and like the mouth stretching. You can now go in and define the tongue a little bit more, give it some shape and that classic like cartoon ridge, and then don't forget her little tiny chin. So now we're getting back into the face, and we are not really changing much of the details. If anything, we're just shrinking what we drew previously. So using all of our erased lines as guidelines, feel free to start mapping things out, like her glasses. I went ahead and added the ears, and her ears are very simple. It's Akira Toriyama, so that's just a few shapes and a little circle. And Arale's eyes are so easy. It's almost like a C, but not quite. And then inside is a circle, and then you can't forget her eyelashes. And the other eye is just the same thing, but mirrored. And then shade in that pupil. You can also shade in the mouth too. For the hat, we can go back to that bean shape that we made prior, and then follow the cap top all the way around the circle. For the wings on Arale's hat, they're just two puffs. Make sure that they are on the same line. You want them to be as equal as possible. Again, in this drawing, I put the character inside of a frame. It felt very apropos for Arale, like she is busting out of the frame. She is literally jumping out of the manga to stick her tongue right at you. So I figured let's go ahead and do that. So putting her inside the frame, make the frame smaller than the width of the head so that it looks like she's actually exploding through it. Drop in Arale's classic bangs, and then we can jump up to the hat and focus on that patch. Following the general shape of the hat, make a nice arch within the front face of that cap, and then you can also draw the seam lines if you want. The hat is going to be almost completely filled in black ink, so feel free to shade it if you would like. We are going to come back to putting Arale in that shape later. Let's jump on down to her overalls. At the base of where her hands are, draw a slight tube that goes down, and then right before the tongue stops, you're going to draw a line across, and that will be the top of the overalls. Once you have that, shade in anything underneath. That would be her shirt black. That will be inked. She does also have a few wisps of hair that come behind her hands, so if you would like to add those, you can add those in there. Drop in the buttons for the snaps of the overalls, and then the pocket on the front. Here I realized that my eyes are a little bit different sizes, so I went back in, erased them, and made sure that they could be as close to the same size as possible. And now to adding Arale's name in her patch on her hat. There is an inner lining to this patch, so you're going to draw essentially that same shape again, just have it a little border around the outside. Now you can see I erased my first attempt on this. It is a little bit trickier than you would think. So what I did was I started with the A on the furthest left side, and then I put the E on the furthest right side, and then I tried to fill everything in until I got to the middle. While it's not perfect, I do think this approach worked the best. Once you have all the letters written in, feel free to shade in the background. That will also be inked black. Now for the inking. Today we are going to be using a dip pen. You do not need to own one or go out and buy one to achieve these inking techniques. You can use a ballpoint pen or a Sharpie and get the same result. The only thing I do recommend is start left to right on your inking if you are right-handed. If you're left-handed, start right to left. You don't want your hand to swipe across your inks and smudge your whole drawing. It's not fun. You're gonna have to start over, and sometimes whiteout is just not enough to save the piece. So using a dip pen, we can achieve a lot of techniques that we can't quite get with a Sharpie. For instance, I am going through adding different variations of line weight and thickness to the drawing. Certain areas have a thicker line, some have a very thin line, depending on what I want to give emphasis to. If this is something you want to achieve at home with a Sharpie or a ballpoint pen, you just have to go over those areas that you want to be a little bit thicker a few more times, add a little bit more weight and width to those ink lines. You can still achieve these techniques with the tools that you have. You just need to work at it a little bit more. Now, as I ink, you can see that I'm going through the process left to right, but I'm also going top to bottom. This will also help prevent ink smudging. Now, for the large areas, instead of using a jumbo Sharpie or a thicker Sharpie, I'm using a brush and an ink well. Again, you do not need to use a brush to ink your drawing. For me, this is something I like because it is a technique that I've been wanting to improve on, so I'm doing a lot more practice than I typically would. I personally find that I have more control over the ink when I am using a brush, and I can also use it to its advantage and get different techniques and different effects out of the brush when needed. Now, to add the border box behind her, I did wait about 20 to 30 minutes for the inks to dry so that I wasn't going to smudge it. And I know that this is going to be kind of hypocritical to what I was just saying about my inks, but I have not mastered using the dip pen and a ruler yet. So for this, I did use a fine liner and a ruler to achieve that perfect crisp box behind Arale. And for the final steps, the erasing. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, why are you going to tell me about erasing? It's just so simple. I can do it without you telling me what to do. And yes, you are correct. You don't need me to tell you how to erase. But I always love to say this. Just do yourself a favor and wait 20 to 30 minutes before erasing. Whether you're using a Sharpie, dip pen, a ballpoint pen, just let that ink set into the paper. You don't want the eraser smudging your inks. It will just ruin your drawing, and sometimes it won't be fixable. And there we have it, my friends. Here is Arale. This was so much fun. I love drawing goofy characters, doing goofy things. It just makes the drawing process more fun and challenging. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And once you do, hit that bell notification so you know when I upload the next Tuesday. And if you did not enjoy this video for some reason, please let me know in the comments why you did not. What are some things that I can do to better help you learn the characters that you would like to know how to draw? And on that note, if there is a character that you would like to know how to draw that you do not see in our playlist, please let me know who that character is so I can add it to our ongoing list. I had a lot of fun today, and I hope you did as well. Until next time, keep practicing, keep drawing, never give up, and I will see you next week for another Tutorial Tuesday. Bye, guys!